Thank you. Yes, currently working as a CEO for Gruppen in Sweden. Is an industrial housing company mainly focusing on single-family houses. But as you mentioned, former head of NCC Component or the NCC Komplett system. Been in construction since late 80s, been studying up in Luleå, at University of Luleå, and also did some research there regarding organizational learning. And now we talk about NCC Komplett today, the large effort NCC did for some 15, 20 years ago to truly industrialize construction. I will talk a little bit what it was for something and how it worked, the main challenges we saw and why it failed. And I think Jerker and I will talk a little bit about learnings after my presentations here. As to Komplett was to try to really make a technical leap to create better housing, and it's the idea, of course, was to use leading techniques from other companies, other industries, leading industries, and to create higher quality and of course half in the cost and more than half in the production time. But at the same time, we were rather keen that we would still could be able to produce architecturally designed houses and that were fitted in the area where they were built, so it should be nice houses. The total investment of this was quite big. It was 150 million euros, and as I mentioned before, started out in 2002 as a development project. First delivery from factory in 2007, closed down less than 2 years later in 2009. And then we had to deliver some 300 apartments. At the top, we were about 350 employees. And I would say this, at that time at least, it was absolutely the strongest effort we knew about in the world to try to industrialize construction at all. And what was then NCC Komplett? What was it for something? Yes, of course, it was some sort of technical platform. And then we had the NCC factory, our production plant. We had our mobile assembly plants, but also logistics and IT systems connected to this, of course. And the technical platform consisted of this some 20 models, very well-defined models of walls, ceilings, elevators, stairs, kitchen, bathrooms. I mean, all the things you needed to build this house. And those were either produced ready-made in our NCC factory or by our suppliers before moved to the production site, the assembly site. And the idea of the system was to build this cell structure of these concrete walls and then put floors and ceiling as more or less as lids upon it, and then assemble the staircases and the bathrooms and the kitchens, and then go on to the next floor by using this steering cones you can see on the picture to the left, and continue to work with new walls upwards in the house. The production plant, the NCC factory, 25,000 square meters, located in Hallstahammar, west of Stockholm. In the picture, you can see on top of the picture raw material coming in, and then you have additional material from the sites, and in the end of the factory, the finalized models were delivered to the assembly site. And the lead time through the factory from raw materials in concrete and steel coils till ready-made models were between 1 and 2 days. 3 lines, the green one for ceilings and floors, and the pink one for walls, and the blue ones for kitchens. When it comes to wall, they were customized based on architectural drawings of them, and then we casted them in high performance concrete. Then we moved them along the line on these air cushions, and then we assembled the windows and the radiators and the wallpapers and the power outlets, and so they were totally ready for moving to the assembly site. Ceilings and floors started out with steel coils and rolling mills making the frames, and then we have a CNC robot welding everything together, and then we put on insulation and gypsum, and finally the ceiling surface and the wooden floor. And this part of the construction of the production unit was rather automized, and I would say it has quite a high level of industrialization, especially for that time being. The kitchen, the last line in the production plant, we started up making installation, technical shaft with all the installation, and then we put the kitchen cupboards and all the other stuff upon them until ready-made models. And when the models were ready, we transported them to the mobile assembly plants we had, and together with the models that came from our suppliers. And we started out by setting them in these transportation cases and moving on trucks. And then we moved them to these very big blue tents, the blue assembly halls that we put up on every site. It says just a moment, assembly is going on the commercial, on the tents. Inside the tents, we had to traverse cranes and assemble all the models. And then actually we screwed the system together with big bolts. Of course, this required quite a logistic system, and I mean the whole idea of this system was to have a pull system. We produce things that were asked for at the assembly sites, either from our factory or from our suppliers. No storage is left; it's just-in-time assembly. But we also put a lot of effort in trying to find international suppliers, to go directly to international suppliers, because we thought that kind of purchasing was one of the main things that would make us reach the low cost that we were aiming for. One of the difficult things was to create an IT system. I mean, this was some 20 years ago, and IT was not at all as developed as it is today. So we have to try to more or less steal the things that Scania did, or trucks and so on, try to see how that could work for us. But we actually succeeded to form an integrated information system, outgoing from the architectural design made in a program called ArchiCAD, and then exported to an ERP system, Pro Engineering, that we then could govern both the supply chain, the production, and the assembly throughout that. But also was a very, very tough task for us to try to define all this model on such a detailed level. That was much more work than we ever had dreamed about when we started out. So that was a little bit to try to explain the parts of the systems and how it worked. And the great challenges, yeah, I think when we started up this, the conclusion was that, okay, the traditional construction process is not possible to change, not at least enough. So if that's the truth, then what should we do if we don't know how to build houses today? How would we then do it? And of course, that put us in a position where we needed to develop everything from the start, and we'd have to do it at the same time. And that was very complex, a lot of things going on at the same time. It also made us to go into battle with everyone within the existing construction industry, I would say. I mean, the unions, we wouldn't like to have traditional construction workers or the guilds. We like to have industrial workers. Material suppliers were not so happy when we tried to overrun them and go directly to China to import the things to the factory. But also within NCC, the accountings, they didn't like us to have this. They would like us to still to continue to have a project accounting, and we couldn't have that. So, I mean, there was a lot of those things that we have to deal with. And those very large blue tents, the mobile assembly plants that we put up, those were really a challenge for us. They were expensive, they were big, they were hard to move, and they were difficult. So I think that's what the things if we would have succeeded, we would have to develop them quite a lot to be able to use them. And I mentioned IT as a challenge before, but I also think that the clash between the IT people and the construction business were quite hard to understand, to get both parties to understand the demands on both sides. Yeah, and this is of course the questions that I have had very many times since we closed this factory down. Why did it fail? And a lot of people seem to have very good answers on it, but not really the ones that I would use all the time. But of course, it was not just one reason. There was a lot of reasons. And the easy one is, of course, we couldn't get the cost down quick enough. And I have to go to NCC and ask for an additional 50 million euros. And NCC wouldn't like to pay that. So it's the easy thing. Like we couldn't put in more money. They have put in much more money than they originally thought that they should do. On the strategic level, the big mistake we did was that we start to sell apartments to external clients during the development before the factory was ready. And that was a huge mistake. What we should have done is we should have founded a plot where we could start to build up maybe 500 apartments or something like that in our own portfolio. Then we could have developed this in some sort of order. And when it comes to not reaching the cost, I think what we overrated the most was the possibility to reach cost saving through this direct international purchase. I mean, our volume was 1,000 apartments. It was very, very low to get any big revenue from that. So in all, I think, yes, we did give this a very good try. We learned a lot, but we didn't manage to get it all the way. So that's about it.